Well, I don't know what the future is for these relations. I remember listening to Tariq Nasheed, the brother that talks a lot about race, and I think he is completely don't believe that anything could ever occur on a positive level in terms of bridging the gap and making the relationship between these two sides, strong.
I I would actually have to agree with him. I don't like anything that man says. I will be completely honest with you. He's got people thinking that they're indigenous, and he's only reading part of what history is about how the blacks came into the Indian fold. And he pretty much dismissing all the other facts that's happened. So a lot of it is, I think he does it on purpose. But at the same time, I do have to agree with him. I don't see anything changing in California anytime soon because it's all gang violence. So we got to cut this loose. And that's why I say I got on a channel because I wanted to be truthful. Because if we're truthful, then we can get to the problem. And if we're not being truthful and we keep pushing all these stupid narratives and this and that, it's never going to get fixed.
Well, I think homeboy Tariq says a lot of controversial things, but there are some times he's on point. And I think that's with everybody. You're not always going to agree with what they say. But I do believe that we can make some improvements on this black-brown because witnessing the Florences and the East Coasts, and this is a truth that still holds right now. It's been 4 years, and they have no shootings, no homicides. And what's crazy is the people that were involved in the truth to make it happen on the East Coast Crip, this guy's in prison now, and on the Florence side, Bobo, he's deceased. But they still figured out a way for this truce to continue.
And that's impressive. You know what I mean? More power to them. I'm glad it's, you know what I mean?
But isn't that a sign that it can happen? We just need more people on the page, on the same page. And what's really interesting, and we don't really talk about this, one of the motivations behind it is that it's bad for business. If your video's out there, slanging and banging, the last thing you want to be doing is getting into shootouts with the brothers, right? Your priority right now is to sell this sack, to make this money, and to either help your family out or give the money whoever it's owed to. And you can't be doing that when you're in shootouts every other week, a couple times a month. That cannot be accomplished.
Right. No, I understand.
So even from an economic side, right? From the business side, from the economic side, even though we're talking about the underground economy, it doesn't make sense to continue to have these conflicts.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. All the way around, it's a good thing for our gente and for the blacks, the brothers. Because I've gone to South Central when I was working on a truck, and I went down the wrong street, and they got the windows broken out. There's certain streets you can't go down, you know what I mean?
Hey, it's the same thing. Hey, what about
it goes both ways.
What about the lady that decided I'm going to move into Ramona Gardens and she got her whole place
That's
firebomb?
A whole different thing.
What you mean?
We had to talk about that after.
Okay. Well,
there was
a black lady moved to Ramona Gardens.
Yes.
And Ramona Gardens used to have a lot of black people, like 50, like in the 50s and the 40s or late 40s, early 50s. There were blacks there, but then Mexicans took it all over. And one black lady, I don't know how she ended up moving in there. I think it was Section 8, and they firebombed her.
Yeah, no, I know all about that. Right now where we live, there is 2 black families that moved in. Nobody bugs them. It's the fact that when you're bringing others to that area, then it starts becoming a problem because, again, the gangs get involved. The gangs from that area don't want them all coming into our area because then they start kicking it, posting up, thinking it's their area.
What about when
and that's with any gang.
There were some blacks that moved into the Avenues areas. This is late 90s. We're talking about 20-something years ago. These black dudes weren't even in the gang. They just lived there. I think it was 3 brothers over the course of a year, all got gunned down. They weren't from no gang.
I heard of it.
So we got so many examples. We can go back and forth on this all day long. It's got to come to an end.
Yeah, I don't know about that. The Avenue thing, I don't know what locked up.
Well,
all I know is...
I will say this, on one of the Avenues things, one of the brothers thought he was going to sell weed I mean, he was just selling like dime bags of weed. Of course, you're not supposed to sell anything. But you shouldn't get a death sentence because you deciding to sell a little bit of weed, you know, in the neighborhood. But we all know you don't sell where you don't live or where you don't have, you know, that's not your area. So on that one example, I don't want to say I get it, I understand it, but it's just unfortunate that this type of conflict is existing, and that's the 90s, and here we are in 2023, and nothing's gotten better.
Yeah. No, you know what? I'll tell you right now, from when I was younger to now, I think it's more racial now than it's ever been. Because when I was a youngster, I got called a spick.
By the whites in Burbank.
By the whites in Burbank. I remember if you tell me that story, I told you that story. So I can say in my life, I've probably been discriminated 5 times in my whole life. I'm not the type of person that thinks, oh, because that dude got at me, it's racial. Or he says something to me, it's racial. I look at it like, okay, I got tattoos. Look at the way I look. I wouldn't want me around my kids or certain areas thinking his dude's up to no good. But I can understand that. But I don't think everything's racial either. And that's the problem with everybody takes it right away that it's racial. Oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. No, it's not. It's not always based on race. A lot of it has a lot of things to do with things that somebody else doesn't know about.
Yeah, that does happen a lot. But I know specifically, like in the Torrance area, the Mexicans were attacking blacks down there, and these aren't black gang members. When you see blacks that are not gang members now being targeted, then you know this must be race. Now, if it's a gang thing, like in Long Beach, there's a possibility that the black-brown conflict in Long Beach is all gang.
Yeah,
it might not have anything to do with race, but of course, you can't ignore
race is coming into it.
Race is coming into it. But in some areas, it's just tell me why they firebombed that black lady in the projects over there. She wasn't in no gang, you know. So
you don't know that.
I think
no, I'm messing with
you. Yeah. Hey, and you know what's interesting? There's been a lot of indictments by the feds and in fact, in that case that I just mentioned, they indicted, because it's on camera too. They indicted like 3 or 4 Mexican dudes on that, and they indicted the guys down in 204th Street. And if you notice, all the indictments are of Latinos getting indicted.
Yeah, it's not the blacks.
No blacks have been indicted for any hate crime.
That's not right. You know that's not right.
Well, I would say you have to show me an example of where a black attacked a Mexican that's not affiliated with the streets, like a straight up. Well, I guess when you see the Elota woman and things like that, yeah. Fortunately, no one's been killed in those, but you know what? Those are racially motivated,
and they need to understand that. Okay, a lot. What people don't understand is when you do something like that and you say a racial slur, it automatically goes into an indictment.
But those attacks of the vendors, those are individual black dudes. It's
right.
It's not the gang.
Right.
The individuals.
But I've seen blacks attack whites and other nationalities and say racial terms, but they still don't get indicted. And that's not fair. Which, like I said, if it's what the thing about this, okay, if people want everything to be equal, then everything needs to be equal. Gay pride, and I'm not trying to get into that because I don't want to cause you problems. But let's say they have a gay pride parade.
Yeah.
Where do they have a straight parade? If you want to be equal, then maybe you should be equal.
I mean, the straights could start a parade if they want, but I
know. You know what I'm saying, though, right? It's just, if you're going to be equal, be equal. If it's good for you and it's good for me,
I don't think it's equal because we're talking about a minority compared to a majority. So in your example, the gay pride, the LBGT, they're a minority where the heterosexuals are the majority. So the majority is not going to go out there and say, let's celebrate and have a parade, because it's just so common